A man with nothing, no home, no money, no family, makes the ultimate sacrifice for someone he's never met. The sun, a cruel master in this unforgiving land, had barely begun its ascent, painting the eastern sky with hues of bruised purple and hesitant gold. The air, sharp and biting, carried the scent of sagebrush and the distant promise of a cold, hard day. This was the American West, a place where fortunes were chased and lives were cheap, where the only law was often the barrel of a gun and the only comfort, a fleeting memory of warmth. He was a drifter, a ghost of a man named Silas, his face etched with the harsh realities of a life lived on the fringes. He owned little more than the threadbare clothes on his back, a weathered hat that shielded his eyes from the relentless sun, and a heart that, despite the hardships, still managed to beat with a rhythm of its own. Silas moved from town to town, a shadow against the backdrop of ambition and greed, taking on whatever odd jobs he could find to survive. He was a carpenter, a mule skinner, a farmhand when he could be, always just scraping by, always on the edge of nothing. His days were a monotonous cycle of waking, working, and sleeping, a rhythm that offered little in the way of joy or connection. This morning, like any other, Silas had risen before the dawn. His stomach growled with a familiar emptiness, a constant reminder of the meager rations that were his daily fare. He planned to head towards the next town, hoping to find work, maybe a hot meal, a fleeting moment of respite from the endless grind. The road ahead, a ribbon of dust and stone, stretched before him, promising nothing but the same harsh landscape and the same relentless struggle. But the road, as it often did, had other plans. As Silas trudged along, head down against the wind, he heard it. A cry, thin and wavering, carried on the wind, barely audible above the rustle of the brush. It was a sound that pierced the silence, a desperate plea for help that cut through the solitude of the morning. He hesitated, his calloused hands tightening into fists. He knew what it meant to be alone, to be vulnerable, to be at the mercy of a world that offered little compassion. He knew the weight of nothing, the crushing burden of having nothing to lose, but he also knew something else, something buried deep within him, a flicker of humanity that refused to be extinguished. The cry came again, closer this time, and Silas knew he couldn't ignore it. He had nothing, but in that moment he was about to give everything. Silas, his boots crunching on the gravel, followed the sound, his heart a frantic drum against his ribs. The cry had led him off the main road, into a small ravine where a scene of quiet desperation unfolded. A wagon, its wheel broken, lay tilted precariously. Beside it, a woman, her face pale with fear and exertion, struggled to free a young boy trapped beneath the overturned carriage. The boy, no older than 7, was pinned, his leg twisted at an unnatural angle, his cries now reduced to whimpers. Furthermore, the woman's own condition was visibly deteriorating. She was clearly exhausted, her clothes torn and dusty, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She was fighting a losing battle against the weight of the wagon and the crushing grip of despair. Building on this, the situation was grim, a stark illustration of the West's unforgiving nature. Outlaws were known to roam these parts, and a broken-down wagon was a beacon for trouble. The sun, climbing higher in the sky, offered no comfort, only the relentless heat that would exacerbate the boy's injuries and the woman's mounting fear. Silas, despite his own precarious circumstances, instinctively moved to help. He knew he had to act quickly, before either the boy's injury worsened or the threat of bandits materialized. He assessed the situation with a practiced eye, his years of hard labor giving him a practical understanding of mechanics and human endurance. The wagon was heavy, far too heavy for one man, even a strong one, to lift. Conversely, any hasty attempt to free the boy could cause further harm. Another crucial layer is the emotional landscape. Silas, a man accustomed to solitude, found himself unexpectedly thrust into a situation demanding immediate action and empathy. Now consider how this applies when you face a crisis. He was a man for whom survival was a constant struggle, yet here he was, confronted with a situation that demanded he risk everything for the well-being of strangers. The internal conflict must have been immense, a battle between self-preservation and the innate human desire to help those in need. Consequently, without a word, Silas began to formulate a plan. He knew the odds were stacked against him. He was just one man, facing a daunting task. Yet he saw no other option. He knew he couldn't stand by and watch them suffer. The boy's whimpers, the woman's desperate pleas, and perhaps a forgotten echo of his own past, all combined to forge a path forward. He had to act, even if it meant sacrificing the little he possessed. The West, in its harshness, had brought him face to face with the purest test of his character. Silas, his gaze fixed on the precarious situation, understood the immediate peril. Time was a relentless enemy, each passing moment amplifying the boy's suffering and escalating the risk of further complications. The sun beat down with unforgiving intensity, turning the air thick and heavy, exacerbating the mounting pressure. He knew he had to act decisively, methodically, and with every ounce of strength he possessed. Furthermore, Silas recognized that this wasn't merely a matter of physical strength. It was a test of ingenuity and resourcefulness. He had to find a way to stabilize the wagon, to create leverage, and to free the boy without causing further harm. He scanned the immediate surroundings, his eyes searching for anything that could be of use. A fallen log, a sturdy branch, perhaps even some loose stones. Building on this, the woman watched him with a mixture of hope and apprehension etched on her face. She was a stranger, yet in that moment she placed her trust in him, a man she barely knew. Her dependence was a palpable weight, a silent plea that urged him onward. Conversely, Silas, accustomed to the solitude of his existence, felt the burden of responsibility settle upon his shoulders. He was no hero, just a man with nothing, yet he was the only hope for this boy and his mother. Another crucial layer is the emotional turmoil Silas experienced. He was wrestling with his own survival instinct, the ingrained desire to protect himself. Getting involved could mean foregoing his meager prospects for food and shelter, perhaps even jeopardizing his life. Now consider how this applies when you face a personal challenge. He had to choose between self-preservation and compassion, a choice that would define him not just in this moment but forever. Consequently, Silas began to work, his movements precise and deliberate. He used his knowledge of carpentry to assess the damage to the wagon. He found a sturdy branch, wedging it under the overturned wheel to provide support. He then, with the woman's help, managed to partially lift the wagon, creating enough space for him to carefully assess the boy's injured leg. He used his shirt as a makeshift bandage, trying to minimize further damage. Moreover, the external pressure mounted. He could hear the distant sound of horses, a sound that could signify either rescue or, more likely, the arrival of danger. Time was running out. He knew he had to act quickly, to get the boy free and to somehow protect them both. This, however, was not a task for the faint of heart. Silas, his brow slick with sweat, knew the critical juncture had arrived. He had managed to partially lift the wagon, but the boy remained trapped, his cries weakening with each passing moment. The sun, a malevolent eye in the sky, seemed to mock his efforts, its heat intensified by the dust and the growing sense of dread. He needed more leverage, a way to completely free the boy without causing further harm. The woman, her face a mask of anguish, watched him with unwavering hope, a beacon in the encroaching darkness. Furthermore, the threat of bandits loomed, a shadow hanging over the already perilous situation. The sound of approaching horses grew louder, a chilling symphony of impending danger. Silas knew he had to act with unwavering resolve, to make a choice that could determine their fate. The decision was a chasm, a stark divide between self-preservation and the selfless act of heroism. Building on this, Silas's mind raced, searching for a solution, a way to overcome the insurmountable odds. He remembered a trick he had learned years ago, a technique used by loggers to move heavy timbers. It involved using a series of ropes and pulleys to multiply force. Sadly, he had no ropes, no pulleys, nothing but his bare hands and his unwavering determination. Consequently, an idea struck him, a desperate gamble in the face of overwhelming peril. He looked at his own meager belongings, the few things he owned in this world, his worn boots, his tattered jacket, his meager supply of dried meat, all he possessed. He knew what he had to do. He had to sacrifice his own comfort, his own survival to give the boy a chance. Conversely, Silas, without hesitation, began to dismantle his own possessions. He took off his sturdy boots, using the laces as makeshift ropes. He ripped apart his jacket, using the fabric to pad the edges of the wagon, minimizing friction. He even offered his meager supply of dried meat to the woman, knowing that she and the boy would need sustenance. Another crucial layer is the moral weight of the situation. Silas, a man who had always been on the periphery of society, was now the central figure in a drama of life and death. The boy's life depended on his actions, on his willingness to risk everything. Now consider how this applies when you face a moral dilemma. The world often presents us with choices that challenge our values, forcing us to confront our own limitations and our capacity for compassion. Silas was now forced to confront his. Silas, with renewed vigor, used his improvised tools to create a makeshift system of leverage. He positioned the branch under the wagon, using his boots as a fulcrum. He strained and heaved, his muscles screaming in protest. The woman, seeing his selfless act, joined him, adding her strength to his. Slowly, agonizingly, the wagon began to lift. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the wagon shifted, and with a final, desperate heave, the boy was free. Silas, exhausted but triumphant, collapsed to the ground, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The boy, though still injured, was alive, his cries now replaced by a weak whimper of relief. The threat of the bandits was closer, the sun was still high, but in that moment Silas had accomplished the impossible. He had saved a life. The immediate aftermath was a blur of exhaustion and raw emotion. Silas, his body racked with pain, lay sprawled on the dusty ground, the setting sun casting long shadows across the ravaged landscape. The woman, her face streaked with tears of relief, cradled her son, whispering words of comfort and gratitude. The approaching riders, initially a source of terror, proved to be a small group of traveling merchants, not the outlaws Silas had feared. They, witnessing the scene of selflessness, immediately offered assistance. Furthermore, the merchants, their faces etched with a mixture of admiration and concern, set about tending to the boy's injuries. They had medical supplies, rudimentary but effective, and they knew how to splint the fractured leg. They also provided clean water and offered the woman and her son food and blankets. The scene, once one of utter desperation, began to transform into one of cautious optimism, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Building on this, however, the true extent of Silas's sacrifice became clear. He had given away everything he possessed, even the very clothes on his back. He was left with nothing but the shirt he wore, his body aching, and the profound satisfaction of knowing he had saved a life. The merchants, recognizing his destitute state, offered him a place to stay and some food. Consequently, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery hues, a quiet sense of reverence settled over the small group. They had witnessed something extraordinary, a display of selfless heroism that transcended the harsh realities of the West. Silas, in his act of compassion, had not only saved a life, but he had also inadvertently revealed a deeper truth about the human condition. Conversely, the boy, though still in pain, looked at Silas with wide, grateful eyes. He saw not a man with nothing, but a man who had given everything. The merchants, too, saw not a drifter, but a savior. They offered him more than just shelter and sustenance. They offered him respect, gratitude, and a sense of belonging he had never known. Another crucial layer is the long-term impact of Silas's actions. The boy, healed and strong, would never forget the man who had saved his life. Now consider how this applies when you face a moment of crisis. The ripples of compassion can reverberate far beyond the immediate event. The woman, her life forever changed, would carry the memory of Silas's kindness, a beacon of hope in a world often consumed by darkness. The merchants, inspired by Silas's example, would tell his story as they traveled, spreading a tale of selfless heroism throughout the West. The story of the man with nothing, who gave everything, would become a legend, a reminder that true wealth is not measured in possessions, but in the capacity for empathy and compassion. The setting sun cast a long shadow, revealing that the true measure of a man is not what he has, but what he is willing to give. The aftermath extended beyond the immediate rescue. It resonated through the very fabric of the West, slowly reshaping perceptions of courage and compassion. The tale of Silas, the man who possessed nothing yet gave everything, became a whispered legend around campfires, a balm for the hardened souls who had grown accustomed to the harsh realities of survival. Furthermore, the narrative served as a powerful counterpoint to the dominant ethos of self-reliance, a stark illustration of the intrinsic value of human connection. Building on this, the merchants, initially focused on their business ventures, found themselves subtly transformed by the encounter. They began to see beyond the pursuit of profit, recognizing the profound impact of simple acts of kindness. They started to share their resources more freely, offering assistance to those in need, their actions mirroring the selfless generosity they had witnessed. Consequently, the incident acted as a catalyst for a small but significant shift in the social dynamics of the region. Conversely, the very landscape seemed to undergo a subtle alteration. The unforgiving terrain, the vast emptiness, now carried a different resonance. The story of Silas became intertwined with the geography, transforming the desolate ravine into a place of quiet reflection, a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit. Another crucial layer is the unexpected ripple effect on the boy himself. He was not just physically healed, he was imbued with a newfound sense of empathy, a deep understanding of the value of helping others. Now consider how this applies when you face a significant life challenge. He would carry this lesson forward, shaping his interactions and influencing his future choices. The story of Silas also found its way into the burgeoning newspapers of the time, albeit in a simplified form. The editors, often preoccupied with tales of gunfights and gold rushes, recognized the inherent drama of the narrative, its capacity to inspire and captivate. The tale became a symbol of the West's inherent contradictions, its brutality tempered by moments of remarkable generosity. The story, though initially a local phenomenon, began to spread, reaching ears and hearts far beyond the immediate locale. Moreover, the story indirectly influenced the local laws and the prevailing attitudes towards the less fortunate. The tale of Silas became an argument for the importance of community support, the need to provide assistance to those facing hardship. The anecdote served as a powerful reminder that a society's true measure lies in its treatment of its most vulnerable members. The legend became a moral compass, guiding the community toward a more compassionate and equitable path. The story, in its simplicity, provided a profound commentary on the essence of humanity. The echoes of Silas's act reverberated through the very fabric of the West, touching even the most hardened souls. Furthermore, the narrative became a catalyst for re-evaluating societal values. It offered a potent critique of the prevailing ethos of rugged individualism, which often championed self-interest above all else. The story illuminated the inherent interdependence of human beings, demonstrating that true strength lay not in isolation, but in the willingness to connect, to support, and to sacrifice for others. Building on this, however, the story's influence extended beyond the immediate sphere of human interaction. It subtly altered the way people perceived their relationship with the unforgiving landscape. The harshness of the environment, once seen as an insurmountable barrier to human flourishing, now appeared to hold a different meaning. The story suggested that even in the most desolate of settings, compassion could bloom, transforming the barren wilderness into a place of potential redemption. Consequently, the tale inspired artists and writers who began to capture the essence of the West through a new lens. Painters depicted scenes of selfless acts of courage, while writers crafted narratives that celebrated the virtues of empathy and sacrifice. These artistic endeavors, in turn, further amplified the story's impact, ensuring that it would be remembered and retold for generations to come. Conversely, the story became a source of quiet introspection for those who had grown accustomed to a life of hardship and struggle. It prompted them to examine their own values, to question the choices they had made, and to consider the possibility of a different path. It offered a glimmer of hope, suggesting that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit could triumph. Another crucial layer is the story's ability to challenge the simplistic narratives that often define the West. The tale of Silas stood in stark contrast to the heroic archetypes of gunslingers and outlaws. Now consider how this applies when you face societal pressures to conform to limiting stereotypes. It offered a nuanced portrayal of human complexity, demonstrating that heroism could manifest in unexpected ways in the quiet acts of everyday individuals. The story also served as a reminder that the West was not just a place of violence and greed, but also a place of extraordinary kindness. It illustrated the capacity of ordinary people to rise to extraordinary occasions, to act with courage and selflessness, even when faced with overwhelming odds. The legend became a powerful testament to the enduring power of the human spirit, its ability to overcome adversity, and to find meaning in the most challenging of circumstances. The legacy of Silas, the man who possessed nothing yet gave everything, extended beyond the realm of individual acts of kindness, seeping into the very fabric of social discourse. Furthermore, his story became a powerful rhetorical tool, a means of challenging the prevailing narratives that celebrated unchecked ambition and ruthlessness. It was used by reformers and advocates to highlight the glaring inequalities of the era, to advocate for greater compassion, and to demand a more just and equitable society. Building on this, however, the tale's impact transcended mere social commentary, subtly influencing the art of storytelling itself. The conventional Western narratives of the time, often dominated by tales of gunfights and gold rushes, began to incorporate elements of empathy and selflessness. Writers and filmmakers, inspired by Silas's example, sought to portray the complexities of human nature, exploring the moral ambiguities and the quiet acts of heroism that often went unnoticed. Consequently, the story became a touchstone for those seeking to create more nuanced and emotionally resonant portrayals of the West. Artists began to focus on the inner lives of their characters, depicting their struggles, their vulnerabilities, and their capacity for compassion. The narrative, in essence, helped to humanize the West, moving away from simplistic depictions of good versus evil and toward a more profound understanding of the human condition. Conversely, the impact of Silas's actions was not always straightforward or universally positive. Some, clinging to the established norms of self-reliance and rugged individualism, viewed his actions with skepticism, even disdain. They saw him as a naive fool, a man who had foolishly squandered his resources and compromised his own chances of survival. Another crucial layer is the subtle ways the story highlighted the importance of community. It suggested that even the most isolated individuals are, at their core, social beings, in need of connection and support. Now consider how this applies when you face seemingly insurmountable challenges. It showed that the collective strength of a community can often be more potent than the individual's efforts. The story served as a potent reminder that true progress often comes not from individual acts of brilliance, but from the collective efforts of ordinary people working together. The narrative, in its simplicity, emphasized the importance of empathy, compassion, and the unwavering belief in the inherent goodness of humanity. It offered a compelling vision of a society where individuals are willing to sacrifice their own self-interest for the common good. The enduring impact of Silas's selfless act also extended into the realm of legal and ethical considerations, subtly influencing the nascent legal frameworks taking shape in the expanding American West. Furthermore, the story served as a powerful allegory for the inherent tension between individual rights and collective responsibility, a debate that was central to the development of Western society. Building on this, the narrative prompted a critical examination of the prevailing legal norms, particularly those related to the treatment of the vulnerable. The tale of Silas, who risked everything to aid a stranger, implicitly questioned the legal systems that often prioritized property rights and individual liberties over the fundamental human need for compassion and aid. Consequently, it contributed to a subtle shift in legal thinking, encouraging a more empathetic and nuanced approach to justice. Conversely, the story also highlighted the inherent complexities of legal frameworks, the potential for unintended consequences, and the need for a delicate balance between individual freedoms and societal obligations. The legal system, the story suggested, should not be a rigid, unyielding instrument, but a flexible and responsive entity, capable of adapting to the evolving needs of the community. Another crucial layer is the way the story influenced the evolving ethical landscape. It challenged the prevailing utilitarian ethics, which often prioritized the greatest good for the greatest number, and instead highlighted the intrinsic value of each individual life. Now consider how this applies when you face making a tough ethical choice. The narrative subtly urged us to consider the moral implications of our actions, to weigh the consequences, and to act in accordance with our conscience, even when it comes at a personal cost. The story also served as a reminder that the law is not always just, that it can be susceptible to bias, prejudice, and the influence of powerful interests. The story of Silas, in its simplicity, offered a critique of the legal system and encouraged a more critical and reflective approach to the administration of justice. The legacy of Silas, therefore, became a powerful force, urging us to strive for a more equitable and humane society. The ripple effects of Silas's selfless act extended far beyond the immediate physical realm, subtly influencing the very language and lexicon of the American West. Furthermore, the story's inherent drama and moral weight inspired a shift in the vernacular. creating a new vocabulary to express concepts of compassion, sacrifice, and the inherent value of human life. Words and phrases that had once been reserved for religious sermons or sentimental poetry began to permeate everyday conversations, reflecting a subtle but pervasive transformation in the collective consciousness. Building on this, the story served as a powerful source of inspiration for the itinerant storytellers and ballad singers who roamed the West. Consequently, these traveling bards, armed with their guitars and their tales, began to incorporate elements of Silas's narrative into their repertoire. Conversely, the ballad singers, often faced with harsh conditions themselves, found in Silas's tale a potent source of meaning and inspiration. Another crucial layer is the way the narrative influenced the evolution of the Western vernacular. The phrase "a Silas heart," for example, became a common expression, used to describe anyone who acted with extraordinary kindness and selflessness. Furthermore, the story inspired the creation of new idioms and sayings. Now, consider how this applies when you are trying to connect with others. The tale of Silas showed how powerful language can be when communicating compassion and sacrifice. The story's influence on language extended beyond the creation of new words and phrases. It also subtly altered the way people used existing ones. The word hero, which had often been associated with gunfighters and lawmen, began to be applied to individuals who acted with compassion and selflessness. The narrative, in its own way, served as a reminder of the importance of language in shaping our understanding of the world. As we navigate the currents of this unfolding narrative, it becomes increasingly apparent how a single act, born from the depths of human empathy, can ripple outwards, transforming the landscape of a society. The initial spark, an act of selfless generosity, ignites a chain reaction, illuminating the shadows of a world often shrouded in hardship and individual struggle. This is a story not merely of a heroic deed, but of a transformation, where the very essence of what it means to be human is redefined. Drawing these threads together, we observe a powerful convergence. We see how the narrative became a catalyst for challenging the prevailing norms of the West, pushing back against the forces of self-interest and individualism. The story morphed into a potent counter-narrative, shaping the ethical and legal frameworks, even subtly influencing the language itself. The act of one man, in his moment of profound sacrifice, became a beacon, guiding others toward a more compassionate and equitable path. In light of these insights, the path forward becomes clearer. We witness how the ripples of Silas's actions transcend the immediate circumstances, transforming the very essence of the human experience. The story becomes a mirror, reflecting not only the inherent capacity for good within humanity, but also the potential for profound change when individuals choose to act with courage and compassion. This is not just a story. It is a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit. Reflecting on this journey so far, we recognize that the tale of Silas is akin to a seed planted in the harsh soil of the American West, blossoming into a vibrant ecosystem of change. The initial act of selfless sacrifice becomes the root, anchoring the story in the realities of human experience. The tendrils of influence, the whispers of the tale, spread outwards, nourishing the growth of a more compassionate society. As we pivot towards the final reflection, consider how one person's choice can become the foundation for a profound transformation. The story of Silas, in its essence, becomes a powerful reminder of the potential for good that resides within each of us. The ultimate message, as the narrative concludes, will be something that we all can take away, something that will stay with us long after the story ends. The story of Silas, the man who had nothing yet gave everything, is more than just a historical account. It's an enduring testament to the transformative power of the human spirit. It's a narrative that transcends the specific details of time and place, resonating with a universal truth that speaks to the core of our shared humanity. The harsh realities of the American West, the unforgiving landscape, and the constant struggle for survival all serve as a stark backdrop against which Silas's actions shine even brighter. His choice, made in a moment of profound crisis, serves as an undeniable illustration of the potential for goodness that resides within us all. The tale of Silas offers a profound meditation on the nature of true wealth. It challenges the conventional notion that value is measured in material possessions or social standing. Instead, it suggests that true wealth is found in the capacity for empathy, the willingness to act with compassion, and the courage to sacrifice for others. The story subtly reminds us that our legacy is not defined by what we accumulate, but by the impact we have on the lives of those around us. The ripples of Silas's actions extended far beyond the immediate rescue, transforming the social and ethical landscape of the era. His act became a catalyst for change, inspiring others to question the prevailing norms of self-reliance and individualism. The narrative became a touchstone, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, hope can flourish. The story of Silas reminds us that even within the most challenging circumstances, the human capacity for kindness can prevail. Ultimately, the story of Silas is not a passive tale to be merely observed. It's an active invitation. It challenges us to consider our own values, to examine our own capacity for empathy, and to reflect on the choices we make in our lives. It encourages us to look beyond our own self-interests and to recognize the inherent dignity and worth of every individual. The true practice begins now, within ourselves, in the everyday moments of our lives. May we all strive to live with a Silas heart.